Honey, where's my super suit? What am I doing to myself? Hey, yes. Hello everybody. It's been a while since I've posted on here, hasn't it? I spent the last 6 days watching every single Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, wow, up to date, so that's 23 movies. So from Iron Man to Spider-Man Far From Home, I've watched all the movies, and I've written all of my thoughts on the movies in this book. So as you can see, can we just appreciate my beautiful MCU watching? Very aesthetically pleasing writing on there, and I'm just going to talk you through sort of how I felt about the movies. I did record sort of my reactions to it vaguely when I was watching it, but I sort of just wanted to enjoy it. I didn't want to have to worry about like filming and everything, because I obviously didn't know when certain parts were going to happen. I just sort of wanted to point out that I have seen some of these movies before. I have obviously seen Avengers Endgame. I finally sat down during lockdown to watch every single one of the Marvel movies, and here are my thoughts on them. I obviously started with phase 1, which begins with Iron Man. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really good. I thought Robert Downey Jr. gave an excellent performance as Iron Man. I thought like this movie definitely paved the way for the other movies. They set like the drama action comedy ratio very well, and I thought Jon Favreau has a big hand in doing that, because his direction wasn't necessarily like a drama action, it was more comedic action. Like when Iron Man's walking away from like the big explosion, it's like in, I don't know what Batman movie it is, but it's when like the Joker walks away from the hospital and it's all blown up and everything. It was quite a comedic moment, so I felt like they really set it up really well. I liked the storyline of a rich billionaire, a spoilt rich billionaire turned good with Stark Industries stopping selling their weapons, and I really liked the I Am Iron Man. It was a really good starting movie, so I liked it. The second movie I watched was The Incredible Hulk. Now, I heard a lot of bad things about this movie. It's not the best Marvel movie, and it's not a good movie either. Like the beginning was really strange, like with like their montage part of like everything that the Hulk had done up until the point that we met him, and it was really strange. It almost felt like they had, the cast had their own thing that they were doing, and the crew had another thing that they knew they were doing, and none of them worked together, and it just looked like none of them knew what they were doing. There wasn't any comedy in it. I thought the love interest in it was a bit boring. It felt a bit pushed, and it had some really strange bits of dialogue as well. It just was a really strange movie, and I was watching it like, who greenlit this movie? Who let this happen? Like it just didn't work very well. And Edward Norton was good. I thought he did a really good performance, but I definitely prefer Mark Ruffalo as the Incredible Hulk. And there was a nice little cameo of Robert Downey Jr. at the end as well, but yeah, it was strange. The effects were very good. They did a good effects with the Hulk, but it just wasn't a very good movie. Then next was Iron Man 2. Now I'd heard a lot of people don't like Iron Man 2 as well, but I really liked this movie. I thought it was so good. It had a lot more comedy than the last movie. The villain, I agree, is not the best. The villain has a bit of a strange motive and it's just not carved out very well. Like they start off really well with the villain, but then as soon as he goes to Sam Rockwell, it just gets strange, and I thought Sam Rockwell wasn't developed very well in the movie as well. I would have liked to have seen him in Iron Man 3 as well. I don't know what happened to him. They just said he's going to jail and then we didn't see him again, and I was like, oh, where's Sam Rockwell? But I loved that they had Scarlett Johansson in this movie. That was a nice introduction to Black Widow, and I thought she did really well. It was a really great like introduction to her character. Jon Favreau did really good direction again, and RDJ was great. I loved the part where he where he gets into the suit on the racetrack. I thought that was so cool. I loved that. But it was a really good movie. I don't know why people don't like it. I thought it was really good. Apart from the villain, it was overall a really good sequel. The fourth movie that I watched was Thor. This movie was quite a spectacular introduction into the world of Asgard and Thor and Loki and Odin. It was nice like to have a different sort of world, because we've been on Earth for the past 3 movies and then we've gone up into God world. Spectacular buildings, these like big palaces and Norse mythology. It was really interesting to watch. I liked him losing the hammer and having to sort of earn it back again, like he had to be worthy, and I liked that sort of storyline. I thought it was really interesting how they did that. It was a quite dark movie. It had some comedic parts in it, but it was still quite dark. I didn't really remember the villain as well, but the next movie I watched was Captain America: The First Avenger. I absolutely loved this movie. I watched this and it was just brilliant. I loved every sort of aspect of it. I thought the villain, again, wasn't the best villain, but it was also a very interesting villain because it was like a Nazi villain, so it was quite interesting because it was like, oh, are they trying to do like a Hitler villain, you know, because it's World War II, and I thought that was really interesting. It was a bit weird with like when he took off his skin and it was the Red Skull, and I was like, okay, that's a bit weird. It was a really nice sort of introduction to the character of seeing like the little guy like be something more than he ever thought he could be, and I thought Chris Evans did a fantastic job. Sebastian Stan was so good as Bucky Barnes. Peggy Carter's relationship with him, and it was just such a good movie. I loved all the action sequences. It was just such an interesting movie. It was really good, and it's definitely one that you can watch over and over again. Like it was a really good movie. Now, Avengers Assemble, the last movie of Phase 1. This was a great movie. It was, the beginning was a bit off because it was basically just the whole beginning of the movie was them setting up where all of them are and then them meeting each other. It spent a bit too much time with like exposition, but it had really good soundtrack. It had an amazing ending action sequence. It was a bit strange how we suddenly went to Loki being like a villain. Like I think they could have had a bit more explanation to that instead of just setting up them meeting each other. The end sequence, yeah, that was just brilliant, and I loved the shawarma scene at the end in the post-credit. That was really funny, and it was a nice sort of transition from the first Avenger where you see the 70 years, he's been frozen for 70 years, and then suddenly it's Avengers Assemble time, you know. Like I liked that transition of the movies. That was really good, and yeah, it was a good movie. They spent too much time in exposition, but it had a good payoff with the action sequences, and I really enjoyed it. We're moving on to Phase 2, which starts off with Iron Man 3. Now, I'd heard that this movie was good, but I was quite disappointed with it actually. With a new director, it lost like the heart of the movie. It lost its sort of the funny, comedic, like quite light-heartedness of it, and it was quite dark and serious, and the Mandarin twist as well, that was just really confusing. I liked that they sort of explored like the effects of New York. It was an interesting story, but the overall sort of payoff of it was strange, and it took a bit more of a serious and dark tone to it, which I didn't really like. I think I prefer when it's a bit more light-hearted and has a bit more comedy in it, but it was alright, but not the best. And the next movie in Phase 2 is For the Dark World, and this definitely lives up to its bad expectations. It was just a mess. Like I couldn't tell you what this movie was about because I don't think they even knew what it was about. It was just so confusing. Loki is just, he's always doing this Uno switcheroo. Like, it's like, I'm dead, haha, surprise, I'm not, I'm still alive. It was hard to follow, but I liked like the Tesseract sort of thing with the, and obviously we go back to that moment in Avengers Endgame when Thor's mother dies and Jane is in Asgard. I thought that they could have definitely developed this movie more before they made it and made it a bit more easy to follow, because it definitely was quite difficult. I think if you know a lot about gods and Norse mythology, it would be easy to follow, but because there's so much like information to take in, it's really hard to focus on this movie and actually understand it. Like I tried looking like at the plot on Wikipedia to try and like read it to understand what was going on, but no hope. It's a hard movie to understand, and yeah, I really didn't like it for that reason. We're going on to Captain America the Winter Soldier. Oh, I've nothing but just love for this movie because it was so good. I loved like the introduction of Falcon was amazing. Anthony Mackie is great, love him. Like we have Captain America, we have the Falcon, we have Winter Soldier, we have Black Widow, all in one movie, and it was so good. It was like it was like an action mystery movie. I thought the Russo brothers did such a good job in directing this movie. It was a really fun, interesting movie, and it was definitely like a good introduction to like the future Sokovia Accords as well, like the Avengers getting into trouble for basically destroying cities, and it was like that was a good introduction into that. I think it was a bit obvious like that they were going in a more like Shield's a bit evil, and the action sequence where they like kill Nick Fury was awesome. Like that was so cool. It's hard to express how, like, you know when you love a movie so much that you're just like, I can't even tell you, because it was just so good. We got Guardians of the Galaxy. I wow loved movie in the MCU. I thought it was good. I thought the soundtrack was amazing. I love 80s music, so it was a really nice like movie to listen to, and I thought Groot was just, oh, he was the best part of the movie. He's so precious. I love the part with like the lights, like where he like protects them. That was so cute. I loved that. But I definitely think this movie was definitely more directed to an American audience because the humour was so American. Like it was very slapstick humour, very much like an aggressive humour. Like Chris Pratt was just like, they weren't funny, they were just rude. Like, do you get what I mean? Like that kind of humour, like it's very American. So, and I found it quite difficult because it was like, it's not funny, it's just them being rude and aggressive, and I don't like the characters, so I felt like I feel like I didn't like the movie as much because the characters were just annoying me. But Groot was sweet. I liked Groot. He was the only character that I liked. And I liked all the colours in the movie. I thought it was a very colourful movie. I thought it was a very action, fun, effecty movie. But the characters were just... I liked the jail part in the movie. I thought that was really clever, and I liked you seeing the Guardians get together and like forming a team. It was a good introduction to the Guardians, and they did a good job. Avengers Age of Ultron. So many people hate this movie, but it was brilliant. I don't get it why people hate it so much. It was so good. It was really, it was a great sort of, it was more action based than Avengers Assemble. Like it definitely had so much more going on in it, and yes, the villain was peculiar. I loved seeing Scarlet Witch because Scarlet Witch is like, she's awesome. Like the male superheroes are like, they use like their shields, they use like they use like the Iron Man suit to protect them, but the girls are like hands as their weapon, and it's like, you go, you don't need weapons, you just need you. I liked the action sequences, I liked the story. It was interesting because obviously we looked a lot more into the Sokovia Accords because the Avengers have caused a bit of wreckage around the world, which is not good. And it was just really interesting. I liked seeing Hawkeye's family as well, like them going back and exploring all that, and it was a very good movie, and I don't understand why people don't like it. Oh, the hammer scene when they were trying to pick up the hammer and see who's worthy, and that sort of when Captain America slightly moved it, that was so cool. I don't know why people don't like that movie because it was so good. The final movie of Phase 2, Ant-Man. Ant-Man is just so much fun. The villain is definitely one of the weakest in the MCU. Like, it doesn't really make sense, like when he distinguishes the guy and then wipes him up and puts the liquid in the toilet. That was just strange. But Louis' storytelling things, I love rewatching those because they're so funny, and Paul Rudd is great. I love Paul Rudd. It always reminds me of Friends, seeing Paul Rudd, and it was a very funny movie. It's definitely one of the most light-hearted films in the MCU. And Cassie, like the little girl who plays Cassie, is really good. And it's definitely it's a very good starter movie. And I think Ant-Man's a really cool superhero. It was a nice introduction into like the quantum realm. I can understand why people don't like it as much because it's not like a spectacular movie. It's definitely a bit dumbed down. I know that they were supposed to have Edgar Wright, as the director of this film. Like, imagine how good it would have been if it was Edgar Wright. But it was still good. Now we're going on to phase 3. The first movie is Captain America Civil War. Now, we got to see Spider-Man and Black Panther in this movie, 2 of the coolest superheroes. This movie was really good. It was it was like the payoff of the Sokovia Accords, of the Avengers getting into trouble, and it was interesting having the villains be one another. And it was nice seeing Bucky finally sort of remember Steve and them working together. I can understand why this is a Captain America film, but it also could have just been an Avengers movie. I like the Captain America, Black Widow, Falcon and Winter Soldier team a lot more, and they definitely could have focused less on Iron Man. But overall it was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. Now the next one was Doctor Strange. This was the first Marvel movie I had actually seen. I remember me and my mum, we saw it in 2016 when it was first released, and we really enjoyed it. I loved like the mystic arts of it all. Like, it was like all about wizardry sort of thing, like Harry Potter, and it was so cool. It doesn't have as much comedy as the other MCU films. It's a bit more, it's definitely a really good like film outside of the MCU. Like, you could watch it without knowing it's in the Marvel and still enjoy it, which I think is really good. It's a really good movie, one that I think could have had more of the Marvel elements in it. If you like, it wasn't really like a Marvel movie, but it was really good. It was very good. And I liked the effects in it, and it was definitely, Benedict Cumberbatch is one of like the strongest actors in these movies, and they did a really good job in it. It was a very aesthetically pleasing movie with all like the moving buildings and like the worlds. I was like, wow. And I don't remember the villain either. He was trying to take the time stone, wasn't he? The next movie is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. They focus a lot on like the son-father relationships a bit more, with Peter's dad being a villain and then his stepdad stepping up and being the hero, and then he died, like they both die. It was a bit strange the last half an hour that everything sort of paid off. A lot of it was just, the beginning was just quite boring, and I don't know, it was just a bit of a messy movie. It wasn't as good as the first one, definitely not as good as the first, and they put way too much of American comedy in this one. They put way more, like with Drax laughing at stupid things, and well, I liked Mantis's introduction, but Drax, oh my god, all those laughing. Yeah, I didn't like that movie that much. Spider-Man Homecoming is the next one. I love this movie so much. I think it has a special place because it's like one of like the first movies I watched in the MCU, and I just love Tom Holland. And by the way, Tom Holland liked and commented on one of my Instagram photos, so I just have a special spot for him. It's a great coming of age story and sort of learning your responsibility. Peter learning to sort of be a superhero, learning to like work with Tony Stark, and Ned was brilliant in it. I love Ned, and I didn't like oh my god, what's her name? Liz. That's her name. Liz. That girl. I didn't like her as much. I think Zendaya is definitely better as MJ. I think this movie was like one of the best starting movies. It's not as much the superhero movie as it is like a teenage comedy as well, and it definitely has a lot of those like teenage comedy like quirks to it, and it's just it's a lovely movie. Like the beginning part of the movie with like the Peter's home video sort of thing, like I love that so much. I rewatch that on YouTube all the time because it just makes my day. I just love that so much. For Ragnarok, this is the funniest movie in the MCU. I just love Taika Waititi anyway, and the fact that he's not only directing this but he's in it as Korg, it's just brilliant. Like, how could you not just love this movie? Because it's so funny. Like, this is definitely the best Thor movie, like, by far. It was like the easy to understand. Like, the other Thor movies are not easy to understand. This one, I understood everything. I liked the Hulk being in it, and Loki finally didn't do a Nuno switcheroo and died and then came back. You know, it was just brilliant. It was just brilliant, and it was so funny. I loved the I have been falling for 30 minutes. If Fall Love and Thunder doesn't start with surprise, I'll be so disappointed because that was just brilliant. Oh my god, Valkyrie, she's brilliant. I love that. And they finally cut Thor's hair. Hela was a good villain. We finally got a really good villain. Hela, brilliant. Love her. Cate Blanchett. Oh, they had one of the characters from Hunt for the Wilder People. I can't remember her name, but she was in the movie. I'm going to put a picture of her up here. But yeah, she was in the movie, and Hunt for the Wilder People is a great film. And that was like brilliant as well. Oh, it was such a good movie. I loved it. Black Panther. This film, oh my god, it's brilliant. African tribe, like, culture in it was just, it was brilliant. I looked up like the cultural sort of meanings of all like the makeup and the costuming. It was just like the amount of effort that has gone into this movie was brilliant, and like the building of like Wakanda, it's so good. And like I just love like the setup to it, and I love Shuri as well. Shuri is so good, except for the one of those. If you watch that in the future, you'll know what year it was released, because you'll hear one of those and you're like, oh, maybe it was that time of the 2000s. It had a great backstory, great villain, great really nice effects to it, and it was a really nice like building of the Wakandan, I don't know what you'd call it, but like the traditions of Wakanda. And like I love like the ceremonial things they do is like to integrate them into being king, and it was such a cool movie. I really liked it, and I'm definitely gonna watch it again. It was really good. I loved it. And now going on to Avengers Infinity War. I know how much people love this movie, and I'm really sorry to all like the die-hard Marvel fans, but this movie is so boring. Most of it is just because there is so many like people in it. It's just like them trying to show you where everybody is and match them up to another superhero. So if they're all in New York, they're all together, and then you've got like the Captain America, Black Widow, Falcon, they all go to Edinburgh to find Scarlet Witch, which are like, they're the best trio. And then it focuses a lot on the Guardians, and as I've already said, I don't really like the Guardians, so that was a bit disappointing to me, because they had like a whole like 20-minute scene of just Gamora, Nebula, and I was like, also it was really frustrating obviously when Thanos wins, but it was really interesting. I liked that because it was like the Avengers lose. Like that's the first time that they've actually lost, like, and it's a bad loss. Like 50% of the universe gone. I will have to say, when the Guardians met Spider-Man, Iron Man and Doctor Strange, that was really funny. I gotta admit, I loved that. It was ambitious. They definitely did it very well. I think it could have gone a lot worse. They ended up just not being able to focus on the story because it was just so focused on trying to comprehend what everybody's doing. So, but obviously when they all blip, it was very sad, but very and very well done. And I definitely think it was quite an emotional moment. I think if you watch like the reaction videos of people in the cinema when that happens, yeah, it's definitely a very powerful moment, and one to remember. Ant-Man and the Wasp is next. This was a really like disappointing movie after like how triumphant Avengers Infinity War was. I think the villain was really strange, like the ghost part of it. I was like, what the hell? But Cassie and Scott's relationship in this was definitely really like a highlight of it. I really enjoyed that, and I think it was nice them exploring the quantum realm, obviously, because we see a lot of that in Endgame, and it was nice getting like the Wasp you get to see the Wasp, and you get to see them get their mum back, and obviously the ending, like the post-credit, not the post-credit, the mid-credit, where they all disappear and Scott's stuck in the quantum realm. I definitely think it's one that I don't really want to watch again. But it also had some more Louis Stewart storytelling as well, so I have to upgrade it a bit more because I love those. Captain Marvel is the next one. Now this one was a bit of a strange one because it almost felt like they didn't actually have like a solid story. It was a lot of like her trying to find out what her past was, but you already know her past. It didn't really have focus because you were immediately shown her past in it, like as flashbacks. So it just felt like it wasn't a very like appetizing movie, I'd say. Like it didn't really have a lot of payoff to it, and I think Brie Larson is good as Captain Marvel. I think she did a really good job, and it was a solid final female like superhero movie. We like waited 10 years, 20 movies later, and you finally get a female-led superhero movie, and it was good for that, but they definitely could have done a lot better, because I know that they had quite a few directors for this movie, and it definitely felt like they directed every other scene. Like there was one directed that scene, then the next scene was directed by another person, and the next scene was directed by another person, but they it felt, yeah, it felt a bit messy. I didn't really enjoy it that much, but I liked the 90s throwback and everything. That was really cool. Now Avengers Endgame. I love this movie. It's just so perfect. It's got so much heart. Like this was definitely so much better than Infinity War because they have a lot more room to focus on the people that are left because there's just not as many people, and I think this was such a good final tribute to those Avengers, like to Black Widow, to Iron Man, to Captain America, to Thor, to the Hulk, to Hawkeye. Like they just were able to really do so much with this movie, and it was just it's so visually well done, and they had a solid storyline to it. It wasn't confusing, it was just so intriguing. Like they kill Thanos and then they go back in time. Like that was so good, and it gives me chills like thinking about it, because it was such a good, really well done movie. Like it was brilliant. The ending battle, like when I watched that in the cinema, I was like, brilliant. Oh my god. Like when they all come through, like I've got goosebumps, let me say the Peter tingle. But like when they like come through the portals and they all fight, I was like, oh my god, it's so good. But and then they're like, Avengers assemble, and then Captain America gets a hammer and Tony dies. Captain America is old, Thor is fat. And that was really good as well, because it was like, you don't need to be skinny, you're still worthy of being a superhero, and you were still a superhero, and you were still badass, and you can still kick Thanos' butt. And the Avengers lose. It was a really nice triumph movie. They come back stronger than ever, and all of them come back. It was just, it's just so good. I have nothing but love for that movie, as you can tell, because I've got a canvas of it. Finally, the perfect palette cleanser after Endgame, Spider-Man Far From Home. I love this movie. I really, really love this movie. Like, they go to Europe, they have loads of fun. It's the aftermath of Tony Stark. Like, Peter doesn't have his mentor anymore, like his superhero mentor, so he like relies on his instincts, and it's definitely learning to grow up. He doesn't have Iron Man to rely on to help him when he messes up. He messes up with Quentin Beck, and Jake Gyllenhaal was a good villain. You have MJ and Spider-Man's relationship, and Tom Holland is brilliant in it, and it's just, oh, it's such a good movie. Mysterio's illusions are so cool. Oh yeah, Nick Fury's in it as well, which is really good. again, it's one that I'm like, I love it so much that I can't express how much I love it because I just can't find the words because I love it so much. Oh, that mid-credit scene, I watched that in the cinema and I literally like, but there was a line of people at the back and I just looked at my mum and I was like, ugh. Oh my god, Spider-Man's been outed. I really hope the third movie is called Spider-Man Has No Home. Oh, Spider-Man can't go home. Spider-Man homeless. I guess we'll see what happens, but oh my god. And Jonah Jameson in it, oh, that was brilliant. That was so good. Like, J.K. Simmons. I finished all the movies. That was like 3 boxes of popcorn later, lots of chocolate later, and I finished all the Marvel movies. Oh no, I spilled some of the water on me. I got so excited though that I need a drink. I'm parched. My ranking of all these movies. In my last place I have The Incredible Hulk because, I mean, do I even have to have an explanation? Number 22 is Thor: The Dark World, just because it was just so confusing. 21 is Iron Man 3 again because it was just hard to understand and it was a bit disappointing. It lost a lot of the heart that I like in Iron Man movies. 20, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Again, a confusing movie, a really bad villain. The Ghost, not it. 19, Captain Marvel. Again, a confusing movie, a strange movie, didn't have a solid premise to it, but Brie Larson was really good in it. 18, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, because the humour was just too much for me and the story was a bit boring. But it was a very beautiful movie and I can appreciate Groot because Groot is like, I love Groot, one of my favourites. 17, Thor, just because I just didn't, it's just not one of my favourites. I didn't think it was a bad movie, it's just not one of my favourite movies. Number 16, Avengers Infinity War. I know how many of you are going to hate me for that. It was boring, I'm sorry. I appreciate how sad it was when the blip happened and when Thor went, not Thor, Thanos. 15, Ant-Man. I loved it, but it wasn't my favourite. 14 is Avengers Assemble because I feel like the final battle is so worth it at the end and it's such an ambitious like crossover. It was the first crossover, it's such like a iconic movie. Number 13 is Iron Man 2 because I just love the comedy of this movie. It's just so funny and I just love this movie so much. Number 12, Guardians of the Galaxy, just because it's a somewhat funny movie. It's got great music, great colours, great action. And number 11, Doctor Strange. I think I've said a lot about how much I like Doctor Strange. I think it's a really interesting movie. It's very like mysterious and cool. Top 10, number 10, Iron Man. Iron Man, the original movie, just a great start-off movie. I have a lot of respect for it because it's the beginning movie of the MCU. I couldn't put it lower than that. I feel like it would be such like a disgrace to the movies to put that lower. Number 9 is Spider-Man Homecoming, just because it's just such a good movie. It's such a nice, welcoming movie. Tom Holland is great. Did I mention that he liked commented on one of my photos? Number 8, Avengers Age of Ultron. I'm probably going to get loads of hate for that because I rank it quite high compared to a lot of how other people rank it. I just love that movie. I thought it was so clever. Number 7, Black Panther. Love that movie. I love the culture, love the colours, love the music, love the acting. Number 6 for Ragnarok because I've always said how much I love that movie, all the action, all the comedy. Number 5, Captain America: The First Avenger, because I just love it. The Captain America, as you'll be able to see, I love the Captain America films. I think they're great. They have so much just action in it. Chris Evans is brilliant. I love that like the stories are so cohesive. Like the other movies definitely have like each story is their own story, but their Captain America films are constantly in keeping with their own stories. Like they continue on from one another and they continue into like the Avengers movies and from the Avengers movies. Like they're cohesive stories. At number 4 I put Captain America: Civil War because I just love the action and you meet Spider-Man, you meet Black Panther, and yeah, it's just a really fun movie and I like that Bucky finally is nice. Number 3, Spider-Man: Far From Home. I think I've already explained how much I love that movie. It's so good. Number 2, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. A great movie. I love the movie. Yeah. Number 1, Avengers Endgame. Woo! Just great movie. I'd really love to know your opinion on the movies, what you felt about the movies, what your rankings are, and yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more, then definitely like and comment and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I love you 3000. That's so cheesy, but it's so cute.